Hey, welcome to my video. Thank you for being here. This is True Divine 44 and I am Jennifer Roberts. So this is a write-in on the wall. It's trying to get through the many notes I've taken through various ponderings, various vision quests, psychic knowings. This is where I put that all out there. And so this is one that I want to speak about, the sacred womb and the attack on the sacred womb and the violation that we see, and I in particular feel going on right now regarding that. Before they brought out all of the roll-up sleevers, I saw what they were doing. I predicted it, that they were going to attack by sterilization for at least 3 generations. And that impact is more than we can contemplate. And the effect of that on the energetic imprint of this realm is huge. And this is where we do have to turn this tide. This is where, if we do want to have a place anywhere on this space to provide our children a compassionate and loving and abundant place to live, we do have to change the tide. We do have to turn the tide as far as it's going thus far. Unfortunately, you know, the stories and the people I personally know who have miscarried or who have been bleeding out or having other various symptoms regarding that would correlate with the womb area of the female is I feel a preemptive attack on the natural cycle that we were coming into of enough strong divine feminine energy being here, not just in the females, but also the divinities of the divine feminine within the masculine, also with the right amount of reverence and respect given, and willing to learn to give the right reverence and respect to the divine feminines themselves. They preempt this, they being the so-called powers that be, more than even them, these shadowy figures, these shadowy beings, energies behind them that puppet them into a certain direction. And they've stayed in control for so long, at least, 2,000 years in what we're seeing right now. I mean, they've stayed in control for so long, in my knowing, that they've learned very well from our ancient knowings, ironically, of our natural cycles in this dimension, in this realm, however it resonates with you, through the astrology, through the working with the elements, being able to manipulate the elements of a being, of a human. They've managed to learn a lot from us as in being the ancients, how to actively shut us down and actively use our own knowledge that has now been hidden and stolen from so many generations at this point. They've managed to learn how to preemptively strike, so to speak. And so where we see sculptures, huge sculptures in Greece and other areas of the sleeping goddess, this was a representation of, I feel, a lot of people who had known the goddess energy here, had known the strength and power, abundance and compassion and wrath at times of the divine feminine goddess energy here. I feel some of those sculptures were a depiction for us now to look at and see what they were trying to say, that the goddess had been put to sleep. The goddess Snow White, rings a bell, doesn't it? Being put into an seemingly eternal coma. But this goddess energy is strong, and there are many of us here at this point that have been came in with this amount of goddess energy, divine feminine energy, and also have been activating it through our experience in this somewhat tricky realm. And so it is a difficult space to be in, and it is very difficult right now when you can resonate with the womb energy and what that feels like when it is being treated with such utter disrespect, not only from the so-called powers that be, through our complacency, through our neglect to fight for the knowledge that was ours, to act in our divinities, we as a collective have also defiled what is the sacred creative space. There can't be anything more beautiful than the space that creates a being that is a baby, to be able to have that moment to look into a baby's eyes and know that it's been in a world within a world, a womb within a womb, and it's grown and been nourished and loved for and cared for. We see that through the complacency of allowing our ancient knowings to be let go of, we see that children come into this world treated like garbage, treated like rubbish. They come in to be, as we're at the point we are now, and for a long time, to be sexual commodities, vessels for adults' abuses. That is something huge to contemplate, because that in itself changes the whole energetic imprint of this realm. When the most sacred, most beautiful, most innocent thing can be so defiled, and the home that it is housed in, i.e. the womb, can be so disrespected and defiled and given no reverence, then we see the result of where we are at now. And through this, what is the natural cycle of, I feel, a lot of divine feminine goddess waking up, the energy of the divine feminine goddess waking up. This preemptive strike with the roll-up a sleever has very definitely been, and it's not, I wish I'd been wrong, but I have not been wrong in that they themselves have even talked about the risk of sterilization. The effects of that are going to be seen, unfortunately, for want of trying to get the word out. The impact of it is still to be felt. And so we already see the result of where the energetic imprint has flowed to when we allow, through our own complacency, through our own neglect of our divinities, in particular, for the want of this discussion, the divine feminine energy, and not giving reverence to it, and therefore not giving reverence to that is born of it. So this is nothing to do about sexism or gender or anything like that anybody might get triggered by, because to defile and not give reverence to the womb is to automatically, and this is what they worked out very early on, is to automatically pull the rug from both the male and the female. Because whether you're male or female, your house, your home, the realm that you were built in, literally built in, was a womb. And so to attack the divine feminine energy so strongly, and go for it full force, in particular through religion, this is where we see the reversal of the roles, and where the divine feminine is that supportive housing, that supportive womb, that space that holds the space and time for both male and female to be born, but in the divinities for the masculine to be poised and ready for action and put into action through the divine feminine energy. By them doing that, they pull the rug out of both. You degrade both the male and the female physical aspects that is born of the womb. And so this energetic imprint that we are in now, it is a lot about connecting to your higher consciousness, finding that love and light, but not ignoring that there are traffickers making huge amounts of money not just traffickers, that there are people literally just in their individual lives having fun by degrading their own children or others' children in the most dark and sinister ways. That's where that has gotten us to. And for what we have allowed now through our complacency in many, many numbers, not all, but in many, many numbers, and again, not for want of trying to get the word out, what we see now happening, the allowance of the degrading of the womb and that sacred space of the divine links that make us, the DNA, then, but through the allowance of that roll up a sleeve to do that, to be coerced so easily into that in the face of such obviousness of alternative facts. We are now to contemplate many things and many impacts that will come from that. If we think about what it has taken to get us here, the abuses, the lack of reverence given to the divine feminine, to that divine feminine goddess energy, that creative space that is the physical womb. If we see how dark and sinister this realm can be regarding the most beautiful and innocent of us, the babies, the children, then we're in trouble. And we really do need to get our act together, because this is worse still. What children, I went into this vision quest of where I touched the moon. I touched the waters that ran through a stream. And I felt this womb, not even being able to contemplate the size that I was in. And to be able to ground myself, it came back down and looked around and realized the things that I know through the experiences I've been through the things I've put myself forward to try and help for. I've gained knowledge of the social services systems, and it's not good. I've gained knowledge of what we have done and what we do and allow to have happen to our children. And we allow that predominantly, in particular in the UK, in Parliament. We are even allowing ourselves to be run by the P word for YouTube. In predominant numbers, and this isn't like conspiracy, this is fact. The predominant numbers and the royal family themselves, we are allowing these things to govern us. I'm so sorry, I went off on a tangent there. The moon, the stream, the flow, the nourishment of this big everlasting womb that we are in, and seeing the very different energetic imprint as to the imprint that the nature now has, the womb now has, that we are in, this realm that we are in has, from the above to the below, the poison that is running through it, through its veins, to its beings that are inside of it. And also looking back to the energetic imprint before this hijack, it is so vastly different. And one huge factor was the reverence given to the creative process of the womb, giving reverence to the capacity, the strength and power and beauty of that portal, and knowing how to use it in the various different ways, not always just having pregnancies, not always just having cycles being so on point, whole villages of women bang on their menstrual cycle at the same time, off it at the same time, knowing when it was happening. And we've gotten so jumbled up with all of this artificial stuff running through our veins that we can't even do that naturally very well anymore compared to then. And so we see this energetic imprint and we see this darkness around us, that we would be allowing ourselves to be governed even by the beings that represent the lack of reverence to this creative space, that we will be complacent enough in many numbers to roll up the sleeve and have that sacred space affected. That energetic imprint is what we are seeing now. Now, what a child brings in when everything is in the right order, what a child brings in is an insecurity. It knocks your ego out of the window. Ego is gone. You're in trust of your body. You're hoping, in my case, that you survive it. And so the ego has exited, left. It's gone, left. You have that submission to the process, that you've trusted your body, you've trusted this sacred portal, this womb, to create this being over this amount of time. And then all of a sudden your body takes over. It is like you are watching on the other side of the room, because your consciousness and your body are completely separate. You see the truly magical side of the automotive process of the body, and the priority that your body as a mother puts to this child, knowing that this child needs to be entered into the next realm, the next portal. They need to come through that birth canal, and the body works real hard to get that baby out safely, as many times as possible, in predominant numbers. And so what do we see when the baby is born, when everything is in the right order? I mean, you look at that baby, and it doesn't matter how much physical pain you are in, the strength of the purity and divinity of this being in front of you is the most beautiful and astonishing sight you can ever imagine. It puts you to your knees, so to speak. It drains you of everything else. The focus is on that child and that child only. You are no longer, even if, like in my case, on two of them where I was managed to be awake at least, you're no longer thinking about you bleeding out. You're no longer thinking about that. It's bang. Is this baby okay? No, I don't want to know about that. Tell me, is this baby okay? Do you need to do something right now? Do I need to do something right now? Tell me, have you checked everything? Do I need to check? You go through that process. All of a sudden, mother is born. When everything's in its right order, the father is there and he is on his knees. There is no punch. There is no gun. There is no weapon that could have put him to his knees quite so much than this beautiful, innocent, pure, divine being in front of him. There is nothing that fills him with more fear, because of the reverence he all of a sudden feels flushing through his veins, hearing his heartbeat. Protect, 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 protect this child. Again, father's ego, exit left. So the child brings in a new parent. whether that is the mum and the dad, the mum, you know, or the dad, even if the mum's knocked out, he goes through that whole process there on his own. In whatever order it is, when they're the right kind of frequency of being, and even the most, you know, what people would say, even the hardest criminals look at their own child and they're on their knees. There is no gun, there is no weapon that can put them to their knees quite so fast. There is such a strength and purity that this baby brings in with it. All of a sudden, this baby births these two parents, or this one parent, however your circumstance is. And it births a leveling up like no other. Your empathy goes through the roof. Your compassion goes through the roof. Your foresight goes through the roof. You're planning your day, you're planning the feeds, all centered around this being, all centered around the care of another. Like Wayne Steiger says, Bosto, be of service to others. Well, this baby coming in through your portal into your little nucleus, into your little world, it means that everything levels up when everything is right. Empathy, compassion, reverence, love. Where we have gotten ourselves to already with complacency, to such complacency that we would sacrifice our DNA line, that we would sacrifice one of the most sacred portals that we know of, that enters these pure, beautiful beings into this world. They can't walk, they can't talk, yet they can put grown men to their knees. They can make women like lions, even in the midst of being all messed up, bleeding out. Pain, don't feel it. Is this baby okay? Tell me, stop talking to me. Do you need to be doing something right now, doctor? You know, or midwife. Or just give me that baby here, please. Don't trust you not to drop it. Even though you're going to trust this doctor with your life while you get stitched up or cleaned up or have the placenta delivered, you know, it's like, yeah, hand over, please. I know me. Everyone else, move back. You go through that process and it's immediate the minute you look at that baby's eyes. Everything, foresight, intuition, empathy, compassion, this child, this baby brings in with it a leveling up like no other. These babies, when everything is right, train the parent as much as the parent is trying to train and teach the child is continuously training the parent. And each baby, even to the same parents, brings in another birth of another parent, another type of parent. Because this little being is so powerful. It draws from you what it needs. It lets you know its personality. It lets you know what it likes and what it doesn't like. The baby lets you know, and you intuitively respond. Before you can even say no, you're responding. The cry is enough. You know, I've been breastfeeding for each and every one of them. And, you know, if I'd been a cow, I would have been a prize cow. I could feed the 5,000. And if a baby cried and it wasn't even mine, bang, wet nipples. Because my baby had tuned my body into baby's cry, you get ready to feed. It was that responsive. And the list goes on of the things that these babies bring in with them. Now, for us to have gotten to the place we've gotten to, where we are not in totality giving reverence to each and every baby, each and every child, is a travesty. But for us to go one step further, and many in the collective be complacent enough to sacrifice not just their own womb, not just their own sperm, but the ramifications that I feel of this shedding, how it may affect your children in the home around you. And the next push to actually roll up the sleeve for the children. When we haven't got these babies being born into the world, into this realm, that bring in with them so many life lessons that level you up like nothing else can. No sergeant in the army can train you like your own child. No teacher can teach you like your own child. No spiritual guru, no nothing can teach you quite as well and quite as quickly as when you are in correct response to the beauty and divinity that this child brings. And I heard in this vision as I go with this cry, this weeping of divine feminine energy, of them being able to see with foresight the impact energetically of the lack of these babies being born into this realm. The impact of growing adults not having that life lesson delivered to them quite literally, especially when we have these powers that be in power. It doesn't look good because it is a void of empathy. It is it is a lack in the love frequency. And it left space for what looked like and felt like energetically a nightmarish situation. So going further into this, as the world expands, and I've written down some notes that I got through this, as the world expands and unfolds, life itself expands and unfolds. But those scales, because of the actions that have already been taken, and very recently, and are continuing to be taken via these so-called powers that be and complacent beings that will not research, that will not look at things, that will not seek their own divinity and sovereignty, those scales are out of balance. So they'll balance up somehow. And it's for us to decide how we do that, how we balance that out, how we protect our children from what will be, if we do not turn this tide, a very different energetic realm. And so what happens when the world feels empty? They keep telling us that we're overpopulated. But I just know psychically that something Wayne Steiger again said, I don't know which show it was, but he said something that made me think of the Petri dish. I know that there is so much more land that we, because we're so controlled, we're not sailing around the world discovering anymore. And I know that my ancestors discovered more than the maps that we have to show for now. I know just through my own remote viewing, through my own vision quests, through my own psychic intuition, that the Vatican has, and various other faculties around the world, has maps of more land, extra territory. And even in the petri dish that we are given, are we so overpopulated that we would sacrifice our divinity? Could we not have been less complacent and started to see the ritualistic process of bringing a child in to a wanted situation under the right astrological elements, as we used to do? What is it going to feel like when because I felt this realm feel bereft on this timeline that I was looking at, that I was feeling through. And it is on the timeline that we are currently on. When the world feels empty. You know, my granny used to say, and I actually heard my granny's voice, and I've got it on my notes here, Granny, because my granny loved children. She just wanted to nurse and have her babies. She had 6 children. She would have had 8 if it hadn't been for some miscarriages. You know, she adored children. And she had a crotchety neighbour who, you know, was a real crosspatch. And the children would be playing, you know, just outside of the houses in the cul-de-sac, and, you know, the noises of skipping ropes and balls and stuff like that. And I remember my mum telling me, oh, your granny, she didn't argue with very many people. She was a very graceful, poised woman. But she told that crotchety woman where to stick her broomstick, because she kept complaining about the children playing in the middle of the day. And she told her she should be glad. An old woman near her death should be glad to hear some happy life. That was my granny's energy towards children. I accidentally burnt Granny's house down. I have had many fires. And play with fire now, but you know, and did I get told off? No, she just said, well, I've paid insurance for long enough, baby girl. Let them pay for the repair. That was Granny. That's a very different energy to what I was seeing as this timeline progresses. If we don't do something drastically to reintroduce the divine feminine and meet force with force, and continue on the natural cycle that was the divine feminine goddess reawakening in the beings in this realm. So what else did I write? So what happens, these are just some key notes I put. What happens, I always question myself to try and dig further. What happens when there is not that driving force to create life? Because, again, as I predicted, and through blind man on a galloping horse can see, with the transgender issues, with this extreme obsessive proclivity to androgyny. If you look at fashion models, you know, they've been getting more and more androgynous as time goes on. If you look at all of that, then, you know, they are definitely affecting the sexual drive and manipulating it and twisting it, you know, the porn industry, all of that, to twist the natural sexual drive, the natural sexual drive to manifest a business plan through sex magic, or to manifest an actual being through sex magic to result in a beautiful child. What happens when that driving force to create life is not there? My answer was that people are like zombies. People will go after other ways of pleasing themselves. They will become so apathetic that these so-called powers that be can do what the heck they like. The sex drive, the sexual energy is so powerful and potent. There's a reason they've worked so hard to twist it and manipulate it and distort it. It doesn't look for a good energetic imprint. So who is telling us we can't sustain our growing numbers? Because people who speak out to say that we can are drummed down. If you look at who is telling us, they're the same people who have been the driving force behind what we've been living through for the last 18, 19, 20 months, whatever it is. The same universities that are telling us are the same universities backed by the likes of Billy Goat Gruff. All famines, I wrote down, are actually processed through those same so-called powers that be. They have the provisions, they've gone to lands and raped and pillaged lands that were doing quite well, thank you very much. They maybe just didn't want to hand over their oil. They maybe wanted it for themselves, or maybe they just wanted a fair freaking deal. And these so-called powers that be have harnessed and through the conduit of our armies gone in and raped, pillaged and massacred the land while lying to us, and through our complacency we back it energetically. There would be more of that. It is not the amount of people I came up with, but the way we are coerced, forced, and indeed encouraged to be. If we could take away these industries, if we could get a big pen and just throw in various people regarding these so-called powers that be, one, that would eliminate the puppets so we'd see the shadows behind them. Two, how many more of these, how many of these problems would not exist if they weren't getting pushed through mainstream media? If strategic Brexits weren't happening to stop lorries coming through and not maintain any of the promises that they promised the people that fought for it, how many of these problems would exist? None. And so the energetic imprint, in conclusion, I think, I can go off on tangents. This is a planned conclusion. My intent for a conclusion. That didn't get to the conclusion. Goodness me, Jenny. The energetic imprint of their planned planet, I've written here. Babies bring in with them an insurmountable amount of light and high frequency. It is blinding. It is blinding. And just a side note, so not fully concluding, through religion, we've been taught that, babies, they're bad, they're not divine, they're not sovereign, they come in with sin and, they're already dirtied, the sins of the fathers and all of this. So they attack what comes out of that sacred room from the minute they come out. If the parents aren't knowledgeable enough, they are rolling up the sleeve of a child that doesn't even have big enough arms to wear a sleeve yet. More or less the minute they come out. They bring in an insurmountable amount of light and high frequency. With that, the guardian of the baby stroke child levels up in empathy, compassion, love, authority, patience, perseverance, etc., 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 said the king. A person naturally becomes more observant and responsible as a partner to the earth that child also relies on, i.e., there is, without all of their indoctrinating bullshit, there is in the predominant numbers anyway. Therefore, it would be in all numbers without them being here for the greatest amount. The reverence to the earth that the child walks on. You literally, there's the saying, you worship the ground they walk on. Well, most people do, give reverence to the ground their child walks on. Thankful that it's beneath the child's feet. You even get thankful to the trees that it's got a strategic branch there to put up a swing, or that the kid can climb up. It creates an empathy and a co-dependency, a respect to the actual womb that the child now dwells in, outside of this safe zone womb that you had it in. And so there is a greater drive to work with the earth due to the love for that child. The guardian is more connected to the view of maintaining a healthy balance due to the needs of that child upon this earth. So, where do we go from here? Because this vision was, full of energy, full of frequency, full of color, difficult to convey and describe. So I hope I've done it justice. Where do we go from here as individuals, and what message do we actively push? Well, we are, for a start, give reverence to our sexual organs. Those beautiful works of miracles that create such pleasure and such beauty and such results when you look into a baby's eyes. Start to maintain in your own life a reverence for your own sexual conduct. In those old mummy talks that people have had with their mummies, and somewhat their daddies, where they say, don't give it away. Don't give it away. And certainly don't give it away under this climate. Unfortunately, where we are at, I really do feel spiritually and physically we need to be very clean in that direction, because the impact of these roll-up sleevers is still to be felt, and the transference of altered lines, altered DNA is still to be seen. Just like STIs, I just feel there's more to come with that. Just like STIs are passed on, I feel there's more to come with that. So have an honor and respect for your own sacred creative organ, whether that be a wand or whether that be a portal, just as important. Work on yourself, do the inner work to clear yourself of any wounds in that area, of any limitations in that area, to lift the frequency of yourself within this area. Whether you are of age to procreate or not, it's not all about procreation. It is a great energy source. It is a great manifestation source. It is the source of your Kundalini energy and the physical manifestation of such. Work on doing that. Maintain your defense as to, if you haven't already, as to not to consent to anything that would not give full reverence to that area of yourself. Speak out about this. If not now, when? Don't be afraid of people thinking you're crazy. Half of the results are in. People thought I was crazy way back then. Not all of you, but not you guys, but some people. The emails I got of worried people. Jenny, are you going a bit off the tracks? No, you're staying on them too much. So don't be afraid of that. If not now, when? Feed into our children more love than we ever have before. All of this bullshit narrative that we have been fed about children being saved, blah, 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 blah. Where? Where? Because I only see people who are on the ground as individuals working really hard to set up their own programs, and they're having to go out and do it themselves. Because government programs have not really been giving us the results as promised. That 17th letter. So for us to show great reverence to our children and be very connected with them at this time, to make sure that our knowledge and our ancient knowledge that we've awakened to during this process is passed down. Do practical things like writing down things like this vision quest, things like your knowings of the reverence of this creative space, so that there's some kind of imprint there, some kind of reference for people to look back to. If you think of World War II, a lot of the narrative that goes against the narrative that we are fed has come through people's diaries, has come through familial stories that have much more truth in them, much more raw aspects in them, things that we can truly resonate in them. And, you know, I could probably think of 10, 20 more things as I did in the Vision Quest, but I stopped writing at that point and went back in. So leave a comment as to how you find this. You know, it's a bit all over the place. It's hard to convey sometimes when things are so intense. And so connected to what I find important. You know, I came into this realm and growing, I was a tomboy. You know, I was very, very, although very poorly as I came in, I was born in poorly. I was nevertheless a tomboy and kicked against all the pricks regarding what I was told I should be able to do. I couldn't be able to do, even medically. I came in fighting almost. And I have never, I can gladly say, and my children have never, my mum used to just animals, she wasn't an animal rescuer, but every week my dad would have either found a cat that had been run over, or my mum got wind of somebody about to drown kittens once, and she went to this really rough place, and my mum's a lady, and took these kittens just because she overheard something. I can't remember the full how she got there. It was real universal energy, and a lot of the litter didn't survive. But you know, I was brought up with tiny little syringes, drop into these little kittens' mouths, picking the fleas off them with tweezers with my mum, because they were too little to put anything on them that would kill the fleas. It would have hurt them too. And so, and there was animal after animal like that. And so, you know, I had a high level of empathy. I'd been taught that. I came in with that, but my mum really reinforced that. I had a high level of compassion. You know, I've never been a bully to animals or other children. And I've got a lot of faults. I'm not bigging myself up here, but one of the things is it was the joke that I would say, I'm not having children. I'm not doing that. Ugh, gross. I'm not, you know, I'm not good. I want to travel the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You know, I'm not having children. But my path was to be very different. I always had that severe sense of protection towards children, even though I was usually quite small in the class. You know, I would stand up for other people, offer protection to other people. You know, I couldn't abide people feeling alone or anything like that. So it wasn't that I didn't have the compassion to be a mother. I was just, no, I've got plans for not doing that, not being tied down that way. And of course, my path was to be very different. And children have been very much the focal point of a great part of my path. Having Abby quite young, and then the boys, and taking in other people's children. I found that how did I start this off? Sorry, because I'm thinking of all that experience, but it's, I find that you don't have to be a mother to, what I'm trying to describe is, you don't have to be a mother to, or a father to get this message and do something about it. There are many people I know who aren't parents, who are so loving and protective towards children. So it's for us as individuals to act in any way that we can as individuals to protect children, to make sure as many children know how important they are, that they do not come into this realm and they're not useless eaters. They do not come into this realm and are excessive numbers, that they actually are coming in right. It is the response of those around them that is wrong when it is wrong. That they actually bring in with them gifts that this universe needs. Just like, you know, they're going to start talking more and more about, you know, the carbon monoxide, and then at the same time they're cutting down trees. The very thing that the trees take from us and use for good. They've got it all flipped side up. So I just feel I'm just trying to say, and I'm babbling on, because this was an intense vision. This was an intense understanding of where we are at. It's to say, to make sure that we are infusing to the children around us and doing whatever we can as individuals to let those children know that they aren't coming in wrong. They are not the useless ones. The systems that they are born under that do not recognize, and the parents that they are born to, that in those where relevant, do not recognize the beauty, divinity, and sovereignty that they come in with is wrong. That is what is out of balance. So I'm just trying to say, they're unbalancing the scales. They are psychopaths. They don't mind that. They're terraforming this place for a different reason at this point. So it is for us to come and meet, not just force with force, but push that force back. Like, keep banging at it to say no. You know, avoid it, spread the word. Don't be afraid to tell people, you know, the facts about what is happening right now with the roll up a sleeve. Don't be afraid to speak out beauty over a child that you see on the street and say, you lovely little thing. Whatever you can do just to infuse that and balance the scales out in the more natural order is what I'm trying to say. In the very long-winded, ridiculously mashed together conclusion of this vision quest, it gets to me. It gets to me. It gets to me what is going on with children right now. It gets to me the visions that I see and feel. It gets to me. And I know for whatever reason, and that wasn't my plan. It obviously was my plan, but didn't feel like it was my plan once I got here. I'm drawn to trying to make a change to it as best I can, wherever I am at any given moment, at any given time. So I appreciate you all listening. I'm going to stop babbling on. I think I've got the point across. I've covered most of this. Have I covered most of this? India. No, I haven't. India came up in this vision. And the reason we're not seeing the truth about India at all. I'm trying to get in touch with some people who are living in India right now to hopefully see if any of them would be willing to come on and speak about what they are really seeing. But the impact of whatever we are seeing, one, they're using old photographs from years ago in mainstream media as propaganda of people just like in China. Do you remember that when they were dying on the street? You know, we're seeing that kind of propaganda, and it is not true. It is a lie, and that's just my psychic knowing, but also the fact that then I find out these photographs are old photographs from a gas explosion a few years ago. They don't even feel like they've got to be careful or, you know, put the production in anymore, do they? So basically, I felt into that also, and that was, to me, that was the introduction in very localized areas, the same way that they closed a lot of the wards down here in the NHS to make the few wards that were open look like Armageddon, and they're not even trying about that now. So what we're seeing there is, I feel, the introduction of the roller sleeve actually having the same effect as it has been having in here, if you look at the yellow card system here. And also, one of the main reasons for this attack in that direction is because they need controllable populations. They need the smaller numbers in order to manipulate and change the next cycle as to their plan, as to how they want it to look. India has a very young, strong-backed population, whereas you look at the likes of Italy, it's a very old place. The average numbers are very old in predominant numbers. India, they are very young, strong-backed men and women, very fertile, have big families. They need to get that number down, and they need to make sure the sterilization process happens there en masse. And they don't want word getting out about that. So that is what is happening there, alongside other things of creating lacks of food and whatnot. I feel the UK is going to come slamming in there to create deals and, you know, be the saviors of the day, creating business deals, trying to get around the Brexit stuff. But as far as further down the line, they're trying to make sure that populations that are big and young are dwindled down into more manageable numbers. Because as it is, if you're looking at the slant down, that before even the roll-up a sleever of birth rates in a lot of the world, in the US, in the UK, if you're looking at that, that's been happening a lot anyway, whereas in the likes of India, going up. And so they need to really impact that because otherwise India has very, very high-tech places, high-tech factories. It has very bright minds in India. It is a very underrated place for its ingenuity, for its inventiveness, and for the amount of space that's there and the amount of young backs that are there, food production and whatnot. So as if they don't get that under control as this next aspect of this plan, then India could very well be a competitive superpower to said plans. So they're just, again, preemptive striking that with that, a lot of bribery going on there, a lot of money being exchanged and whatnot. So that is the end of it, and that is the conclusion. Ta-da! See, so we'll pretend that long-winded, drawn-out conclusion where I go off on all sorts of tangents was actually part of the context, and then I'm going to claim that little neat aspect as the conclusion and say, I love you all. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Please leave a comment as to how you are feeling about this, as to what you are energetically feeling, intuitively knowing, and just how you found it in general. You don't even have to be that kind. I've got thick skin. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. Much love, much balance, and much wholeness. Mwah.